Welcome to the lecture portion of our spring lecture series. This is our third and final lecture of our 2026 spring series. We will see you back in fall. We have 3 great lectures in fall, but today we are ending with a really great talk. These lectures would not be possible without the support of a few really important individuals. Larry and Karen Betcher sponsored the lecture series tonight, and without them, who knows what we'd be doing right now. Certainly having a great talk, I suppose. But before we get to this excellent talk, I have a few things of housekeeping. If you are on Zoom, for our Zoom friends, and if you're in person, you can join anywhere in the world via Zoom when these are happening. If you want closed captions, there should be an option at the bottom of the screen to turn on your closed captions. If you have any issues with the virtual portion of Zoom, typically logging off and logging back on solves your problems. And if you are, any of you, for any reason, virtual or not, miss part of the presentation today, all of our lectures go onto our YouTube channel after the fact. So look next week for our lectures. If you're seeing this virtually on YouTube, hello from the past. These are all posted for free on our YouTube channel at no cost. You could relive these time and time again, and you will want to, because today's is a good one. The last thing I will say is in-person attendees and virtual attendees, we will have a Q&A portion at the end of the talk, if I don't break the stand kicking it with my excitement. And at the end of the talk in person, you'll be able to raise your hand, ask questions. And if you are attending via Zoom, there is a Q&A function in the chat that I, as the host moderator, will be asking your questions at the end. And the last thing I want to say is many of you are members in this room. If you are not a member, becoming a member is one of the best ways to support what we are doing. nmgl.org/membership if you're attending virtually, or if you want to chat with the young lady up at the desk, Paige, she can take care of you, or anytime you can call and we will welcome you aboard. We're more than happy to. Membership comes with plenty of perks. Without further ado, I am thrilled to be able to introduce our guest of honor today. Our guest has built quite the career in communications, in public relations, and media relations, working with organizations ranging from Fortune 500 companies to nationally acclaimed nonprofits. Our guest has served as the primary spokesperson for United Way of America during Hurricane Katrina, is an adjunct professor at Georgetown University, and an advisory board member here at the National Museum of the Great Lakes, and we are thrilled to have them. Our guest is a dedicated historian who is committed to preserving history, which I think may be why we're all here to learn about that very thing. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure. Put your hands together and welcome Sheila Consaul. Sheila.
Everybody, I'm Sheila. It's great to see you. Yay. We're going to talk lighthouses tonight. So can everybody hear me okay in the room? And I guess online, the Zoom folks can, and if not, they'll let Chris know. So I'm thrilled to be here. This is my first time here in Toledo and at the National Museum of the Great Lakes. So it's very exciting for me as well. So let's talk about lighthouses, but one in particular, being the one that I own. That's why we're here. Hopefully you'll keep laughing. I've been laughing now. This is my 15th year in preserving this structure. So we'll talk a lot about that. And I'm sure you'll have questions at the end. Everybody does, but hopefully I'll answer a few as we go along. So I call this presentation the who, what, where, why, and how of Fairport Harbor West. So this is the who and kind of the what. The who is me. I have my email address. Obviously, the lighthouse is Fairport Harbor West Breakwater Light, or Fairport Harbor West Lighthouse. It is on these socials, as you may know them, Facebook, X, Instagram, Pinterest, and it does have its own website. You can see that at the very bottom, so you can check out the website. I did leave you all some stickers on the table. There are stickers, and hopefully there's a few business cards left that have the website address and just some other information if you want to find that. All right. So this is the first question. This is what everybody wants to know. Why would I buy a lighthouse? Always a good question. So I live outside of Washington, D.C. I've had my professional career there. Spent a lot of time dealing with a lot of different bureaucracy. Anybody who lives in and around Washington needs to be able to do that. But if you know much about Washington, you know that the summers there are extremely hot and humid, basically miserable. I grew up in the Finger Lakes area of New York State, if you know where that is, which is usually known much more for their winters than their summers. But it means their summers are beautiful. They're 70 to 80 degrees, low humidity, the complete opposite of Washington, D.C. So after 30 plus years in Washington, I decided I needed some place to get out of the humidity and the politics too in the summertime. So I started looking for a summer house. And I had done some historic renovation work before, and I always loved old houses, old structures. I like to say that I'm much more connected to old buildings maybe than I am to old people, old industries, old other things, but buildings resonate with me. So I was looking around for a summer house, and I thought, well, what's historic? What's on the water? What would make a really cool summer house? And just being in DC, I heard about the federal government auctioning off lighthouses. Now, some of you may have heard of this, and some of you still may not understand how it all works, so I'll explain it a little bit. This came about under a law passed in 2000 by the US Congress, by our legislative branch, called the National Lighthouse Preservation Act of 2000. And what that said, well, we have a lot of lighthouses in the United States, right? Does anybody have any idea how many lighthouses are in the United States? No? There are about 800 in the United States, and those are buildings. And then we'll talk about a little bit of the difference between working, not working, commissioned, decommissioned, all those little terms, but about 800 structures. And that's it. We're not building any more lighthouses, right? So the government said, well, we have all of these buildings, but whether they're working, whether the light is working or not, people are not living in them anymore. The days of the manned lighthouse or attended lighthouse are past us. There was one in Boston for a long time. A woman was considered the keeper there. As she gave tours and things, but she's retired, so there are no longer any manned lighthouses. The lighthouses that do work, the lights that come on and that are activated navigation, are all automated. My particular one is run by solar power. Fairport Harbor West is an active aid to navigation, and that is the term. That is the term for working. Some people say working. Well, in the Coast Guard lingo, it is active aid to navigation. It comes on every night at dusk, and it goes off at dawn. It has a set pattern. Every lighthouse has its own light pattern. Some of you probably are shaking your heads. You know this. Mine is 2 seconds on, 3 seconds off, right? That's how you can tell the difference between lighthouses. Not that you're going to go around at each one and sort of at it, but back in the old days, and when I bought mine in 2011, it didn't have a street address, right? What did it have? It had longitude and latitude, and it had a name. And that's how you identified lighthouses, right? And by their patterns. So these were the ways that they identified different lighthouses. So back in 2000, the government said, well, we have all these lighthouses, and some of them are still working with lights, some of them aren't, but nobody's living there, and they're costing us a lot of money. They're old, they need repairs, they need to be taken care of. What are we going to do about it? So this act of Congress said to the General Services Administration, which is the federal government's real estate agency, well, GSA, you handle real estate, and that's basically what lighthouses are now. They just happen to have a big light on top of them, but they're real estate. Nobody's living in them, nobody's working in them. So figure out what you want to do with these lighthouses. So the General Services Administration came up with a program. They said, okay, well, how do we get rid of these lighthouses? GSA handles a lot of other federal properties, a lot of office buildings, warehouses, storage facilities, you name it, pretty much everything that's not military, right? So they are, okay, well, we got to come up with something, but they kind of thought, well, but these are lighthouses. These are really cool. First of all, they're beloved, right? They're mysterious, they're unique, they're historic, they're old, right? They have all these different things. They're not your average government building. So what are we going to do with them? Well, they said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up with a list. We're going to narrow our little focus down and we're going to say, all right, we're going to work on a short list every year of lighthouses that need to be disposed of, right? And that disposing of lighthouses really doesn't have anything to do with whether they're working or not, whether the light's still on or not. It's just their list. And I'm not sure how they come up with it. They could just pull names out of a hat. Who knows? But every year they come up with a list. I say, okay, we're going to work on these. Well, the first thing they do is they go to a local community where the lighthouse is, right? And they say, oh, hey, I know there's one in Toledo. I know there's one in Ashtabula. There's one in Lorain. Are you all interested in taking over this lighthouse? And that could be a community group, a historic society. A lot of times groups have formed to actually save a particular lighthouse. And that's how a lot of lighthouses get transferred. And over the years, that has happened even before this Act of 2000, right? If the lighthouse was decommissioned, it was sort of sitting there, the government would go to a community and say, oh, would you be interested in taking over? Many of them have been transferred this way. However, let's talk about Fairport Harbor for a while. Have many of you been over to that side, Fairport Harbor? Okay, it's a lovely little town. And there is a harbor that big ships, including the Mark Barker, believe it or not, goes into. It was just there last week, I saw it. So for years, large ships that have by the Great Lakes go into the harbor there, and there's industry, there's gravel, there's a Morton salt facility there. They bring things in, they take things out on these huge freighters, right? So in 1825, the town of Fairport and the government built a lighthouse there. It's called Fairport Harbor Lighthouse. It's the original Fairport Lighthouse. A lot of times you Google to try and get mine and you get theirs. So that one was first lit in 1825. It ran for nearly 100 years. It's up on a hill. It's a beautiful building with a tower lighthouse next to it. Ran for 100 years. When that one got to be the end of its really life, they decided they were going to build another one. Well, we need another lighthouse. This one's 100 years old. It's up on land. Why don't we build one further out? A little further out, down a breakwall, down a pier, so that ships can see it before they ever get close to land, right? You know a lot more about the shipwrecks on these lakes than I do, but there were a lot of those going on. So they built a breakwall out, and then they built a square rock platform, which is where my lighthouse sits. So when the General Services Administration decided to dispose of Fairport Harbor West, they went to the community of Fairport Harbor and said, oh, we have this lighthouse. Isn't this great? Are you interested in taking this one over? Well, Fairport Harbor, the town of Fairport Harbor, had done exactly that in the 1940s. Fairport Harbor was so far ahead of the government because when they decommissioned the original Fairport Lighthouse, the community wanted to take it over. The government wanted to tear it down. Oh, this is just a building. We don't need this anymore. Well, if you know Fairport Harbor, it sits in the middle of their town. And they said, no, we don't want you to tear it down. This is a beautiful building. It's historic. It ran for 100 years. What do you mean you're going to tear it down? So eventually, after a lot of negotiation, they were deeded Fairport Harbor Lighthouse, and it is now the Fairport Harbor Marine Museum. So in the 1940s, the town of Fairport did exactly what the government thought was such a novel idea in 2000, took over that one and runs it now, all volunteer run, as the Fairport Harbor Marine Museum. And it's great. They have a really interesting collection of Lake Erie artifacts, different shipping artifacts. So if you ever get over there, make sure and put it up on your to-do list. So what does the government do when they go to a community and they say, yeah, no, we already did this, or no, we don't have the wherewithal, or Toledo, I know, for example, is way out there in the lake, not exactly easy to get to, right? So what they do is they end up putting these lighthouses up for auction. So it's like eBay for lighthouses. So I heard all this was going on and I thought, okay, take a look at this. So I took a look at this and I decided I was going to bid in this lighthouse. So I did come for a quick trip. And this was actually the second lighthouse I had looked at. I looked at one in Lake Ontario, and it was an hour and a half out in a boat. It was on the, if you draw a line across Lake Ontario, it sat on that line between the US and Canada. So if you jumped off one side, you'd be in Canada. You jumped off the other side, you'd be in the US. And I thought, oh, this is not very practical, is it? You could be stuck out there for a really long time. So I decided that one really wasn't for me. And then I looked at Fairport Harbor, and Fairport Harbor, despite some of the challenges, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but was much more attractive. It was accessible through a state park. It's a large building. It's about 3,000 square feet. And so I thought it was much more interesting than that one. So let me tell you a little bit about Fairport Harbor itself. Fairport Harbor was built in a factory, built in a lighthouse depot, they called them. And this one was in Buffalo, New York. It cost $42,000. I mean, I think cars are more expensive than that now, right? It was transported by a ship. And if you can see this, looks pretty much like a lot of the Lake Erie freighters today, right? It was called the SS Wotan or Wotan. And as you can see, the superstructure of it came down from Buffalo to where it is present day. It was brought down. The only thing I have no idea how they did is get it from that ship to the platform. Somehow they had to have some massive crane or something that they got it off the ship up onto the platform, and it was first lit June 9th, 1925. So last year it turned 100 years old. These give you a couple of other historical pictures of it. You can see some of the changes here. You can particularly see the platform that was built. The platform and the break wall that leads up to it was built in the early 1900s by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers built that in anticipation for putting this new lighthouse a bit further out. And so that's how the lighthouse came down. You can see how it came down on a ship. It got up somehow on that platform, and there it sits now. So when I first started looking at this lighthouse, I started looking in 2009. That is the first year that it came up for auction on the infamous lighthouse eBay auction. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll bet on it. Well, if you know anything about auctions, about eBay, you know, you get really excited and you watch it go up, right? And then all of a sudden you get reality hits and you're like, oh, no, that's too much money, I'm out, right? So I bid on it a few times and then I was out. That was 2009. In 2009, the lighthouse was sold to a gentleman of Mentor, Ohio, over there named Jerome Osborne. If that rings any bells, he owns quite a bit of that area of the eastern side. He's kind of a captain of industry and wanted to do a lot of different things. He has done a lot of different things in the community. But one of the things about buying these lighthouses is you're buying them from the government. And in this case, because the Army Corps of Engineers built that break wall and built the platform, they still own that. And because the Army Corps of Engineers still owns it, The owner of the lighthouse, me, has to have a lease with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it's like if you have a cabin in a national forest, you don't really own the national forest, you own your cabin. So I own the lighthouse, but I don't own the platform. I've leased that and they give me an easement and access to it. Now, Mr. Osborne, he was very, shall we say, progressive. He wanted to develop this lighthouse. And there's lots of rumors about what he wanted to do. I've heard he wanted to make a floating restaurant, a water park. Wasn't quite sure. But the Army Corps of Engineers said, no, you're not going to do that. So he was found in default. So as the 2009 auction came to a conclusion, he was found in default. What does that mean? Well, it really just means the government keeps the deposit. They keep his money, his deposit money. He goes off on his merry way and they are stuck with the lighthouse. So that was 2009. 2010, they brought the lighthouse back up because they still have this lighthouse. It's still on their list, right? So they brought it back up, started another auction. And by this time, I had sort of gone on my merry way, right? I thought it had sold. I wasn't sure what I was doing about a summer house. And in 2010, it was sold to a gentleman out of Texas. And if you remember, that was kind of not a great economic time, sort of the recession of 2008, 2009. And apparently this gentleman lost his job. Like, oh, I lost my job. I guess I can't buy a lighthouse. So he was found in default by the government. Yeah, so the government's making more money than they need to be making on this. So they did learn something though, but it took them until 2011. In 2011, they did a couple of different things. One is they finally contacted everybody who'd ever bid on it before. Okay, that was one. But the bigger thing that they did is they said, well, now with the lighthouse, if the first person who wins it defaults, we're going to go to the second person in line. Brilliant, right? They just had never done that. I mean, you can't blame them. They weren't used to auctioning off lighthouses, right? So they were kind of new at this. So in 2011, I got an email and it said, oh, this lighthouse is coming up. You've bid on it before. Would you be interested in bidding on it again? Okay, I hadn't bought anything. I thought, so I bid on it again. Up it goes. Got to my cap. Said, nope, that's it. I'm done. Okay, dropped out. That year, 2011, a doctor, you're laughing, and I'm not even to the funny part yet. That year, a doctor from Cincinnati bought it. He had a buddy. They wanted to make like a little fishing lodge, little guy's place, whatever. Well, apparently he forgot to tell his wife. Oops. So very shortly after that auction, I got an email from the General Services Administration, and they said, well, we do have a winner, but we don't think he is going to go through this whole settlement here, and you're second on the list, so stand by. So I said, oh, okay. So literally 2 weeks later, it was August of 2011, I got an email and they said, yep, he's defaulted, he's out, it's yours if you want it. So 3 auctions, 4 times, it's mine, 2011. So that year I took possession. You have to do a lot of paperwork, insurance, all the different things. I took possession on 11/1/11. And do you think I did that on purpose? Yes. So I could remember the date. Obviously, it got to the end of October. I'm going October 30th, 31st. I'm like, wait, that's 11/1/11. Anyways, so it makes it easy for me to remember. All right. So what did it look like in 2011? This is what it looked like. And I'll tell you why it looked like this. When Fairport Harbor West was first lit in June 9th, 1925, there were keepers who lived there. They lived there 24/7, just like a lot of lighthouses. They had to keep that light going with kerosene, whatever it needed, 365 days a year. in Northeast Ohio, in frozen Lake Erie, you name it, they were there keeping that light on, right? So they tended the light from 1925 to about the end of the 1940s, about 1948. And the reason they stopped in 1948 is because they electrified the lighthouse. So they ran a cable. There is a Coast Guard station in Fairport. They ran a cable under the harbor and into the lighthouse, and then they could just turn it on and turn it off, right? So the keepers didn't need to be out there. So they would come back and forth. Even when they were there 24/7, their families didn't live with them. Their families lived in the town of Fairport Harbor. They just came back and forth for their shifts to the Coast Guard station. So it was manned from 1925 to 1948. Well, 1948, they decided to go back to the Coast Guard station, and they would have moved out whatever they wanted to move out, their furniture, their records, their books, their pots and pans, who knows what they had in there, right? So they moved it all, whatever they took out. And from 1948 until I bought it in 2011, it was closed. It was closed, except when the teenagers would break in and a few other things were going on, but it was technically closed. The Coast Guard would go there. Coast Guard owned it. They would go there with their number one concern, as in any lighthouse, is the light itself and not the building. So they did absolutely the minimum amount of care that it needed to stay standing, right? As long as that light was going on, they were fine. And the Coast Guard station that maintains the light is actually the Coast Guard station out of Buffalo, New York. It is not the Coast Guard station in Fairport or Cleveland or any place closer. It is the Coast Guard station in Buffalo. That's because they are called the Aid to Navigation Team, the ANTS. And they handle all of the lighthouses, markers, and buoys in the entire Eastern Great Lakes. And the reason is because they're all very electronically driven now. Mine's run by solar. They're very much automated. You know, you can look at the different configurations going on at any particular time. So if you think about the electronics that these need, it's much more sophisticated than your average Coast Guard, area. They're focused on safety. So from 1948, you can pretty much see in these pictures, the windows got broken out, they got boarded up, a lot of the plaster fell off. When we were first going there, we were shoveling plaster, off. It hadn't gotten painted. There was rust. You can see in the picture on the far left, there's rust on the ceiling. There's mold on the brick there. It was really not in good shape, let alone a pretty summer home on a lake. So this is how I found it in 2011. So this is what it looks like now. So 15 years later, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, the entire lighthouse has been renovated. It is technically 5 floors. There's 4 sets of stairs. There's a basement. There's the main level where the kitchen, the living room, and the dining room are now. There's a bedroom level. There's what is called the lantern, the service level, and then where the beacon is up at the top. And as you see in this picture, everything that you see, granite countertops, furniture, bedding, pillows, pictures, you name it, was been brought out in the last 15 years. Oh. Most of it has been walked out because of where we have to park our cars at Menor Headland State Park. The big things do come out by boat. So the appliances, the cabinets, the granite, all of that. I hire a barge down the Grand River in a small boat, and I have a great boat captain that will bring it out and bring it up for me. He has a crane, and we'll see in the video at the end. You'll see the crane bringing up the refrigerator and the washing machine and all of the various appliances and things. But yes, and how has it gotten this way? Well, with a lot of help. I mean, I might own it, but fortunately I've had a lot of volunteers who have helped me over the years, and very funny stories. I have a very good friend who's one of my volunteers. She was out there on Fairport Harbor paddling around in a kayak. I was up there cleaning, doing something. She paddles up with, "Hey, what are you doing up there?" You know, that's how I met people, right? People. Another funny story is you generate a lot of trash when you're renovating a lighthouse. A lot of trash. Fortunately, there is a dumpster in the parking lot of the beach area there, so I can use the dumpster. But you have to carry it back out. All the paint we carried out, just for example, we used about 90 gallons of paint inside. When we were first painting, we'd paint, and we look, "Did you paint this?" "I thought I painted that." I mean, it was like a sponge. It was just sucking in paint, like the plaster, like you would not believe. 90 gallons inside and outside. We've used about 60 to 70 gallons. The outside is very specialized paint because the outside are steel plates. And I work with our friends at Sherwin-Williams, and they develop a marine grade paint, and it's like painting a battleship. It is, because it's steel, it's in the middle of Lake Erie. That paint is not cheap, trust me. So this is what it looks like now. And I have a little video for you. It's about a 10-minute video, and I just want to set it up for you. It's going to talk a lot about what I talked about, hopefully the things that I answered before we get to the Q&A. It is a video by CNBC. If you're familiar with them, they're focused a lot on money. So they wanted to know a lot about how much money went into this thing. So they do talk about that. I don't usually talk about it, except for the initial price, because that was public information since I bought it from the government. But as far as what it took to really get it from the first pictures you saw to the second pictures you saw. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. We're going to watch the video, and then we'll have Q&A.
So living in a lighthouse is not like living in a regular house. First of all, the access. You can't drive up to it. You have to park about a half a mile away. You have to carry your supplies out. So food, water, gas for the generator, all gets carried out. But once you're here, it's like no other experience. Welcome to Fairport Harbor West Lighthouse in Fairport Harbor, Ohio. Come on inside. My name is Sheila Consaul. I'm 65 years old. I bought an abandoned lighthouse from the federal government for $71,000. It's in Fairport Harbor, Ohio, right on Lake Erie. When I'm not at the lighthouse, I live outside of Washington, D.C. in Ashburn, Virginia. I was looking for a summer home, someplace that was a little cooler in the summers. I heard about the government auctioning off lighthouses. I've done some historic preservation work in the past, renovated a historic home, and thought a lighthouse would be a great opportunity to combine both a summer home and my love of historic preservation. All the windows were broken, plaster was falling off the walls. There was so much to do, it needed painting desperately. I used a home equity loan to pay for the lighthouse purchase and some of the initial renovations. That was about $200,000, but it's since been paid off, and now I just pay as I go. The renovation process has been long and arduous. Even though I'm located in a state park, you have to walk a half a mile from the parking lot through a sandy beach, and sometimes the water makes it so that you have to get up on the break wall and come in that way. For large items, all of that had to come by boat. We would bring a barge up to the side of the lighthouse. The barge has a crane. The crane lifts some of the large items over the fence onto the platform, and then they're brought into the lighthouse. The biggest challenge I've had with the renovation has been utilities. The lighthouse is completely off the grid, so I had to completely renovate all of the electrical and rewire the lighthouse. When I need electricity, I flip on my generator, but I try and conserve it because it runs on gasoline, and I have to carry gasoline out here. It's my least favorite thing to carry out here. So I probably spend a few $100s a summer on gasoline for the generator. A lot of that has gone to a full kitchen, all the water treatment equipment, fully redoing the electrical in the entire lighthouse, also plumbing the entire lighthouse. The windows were also redone. A lot of the woodwork has been stripped and redone. Like any project, this cost more and took longer than I ever imagined. I originally had about a $200,000 budget to renovate the lighthouse, so I am a little over what I anticipated, but it's well worth it. This level's been fully refurbished now. We have a dining room. We have an amazing kitchen, complete with granite countertops, appliances, new cabinets. Over here, we have our living room, and we have a small utility laundry room over here. One of my favorite things about the lighthouse, and probably everybody's favorite thing, is this cast iron staircase. All the way up to the second floor, and there's another set beyond that. So the windows on this main level were one of the first projects I did, mainly because I needed light and I needed the air. All of the glass on these windows were broken out, as were the windows upstairs. These were all hand stripped, all the paint was stripped off, the glass was replaced, the rope was redone and attached to the weights. So now they all fully function. One of my other favorite things that we've done is commission some beautiful stained glass windows. I keep a wall here of some of the volunteers who've come in along the way to help me paint, clean, refurbish, and really renovate this lighthouse. We're downstairs now in the platform of the lighthouse. This level, when the keepers lived here, was also a mechanical level, very much like it functions now. There's a large room back there, which is a cistern. The cistern holds water. Right here, we have a wine cellar, one of my pride and joys. This room is our bunk room. It's one of our 3 bedrooms. This room originally was where the coal boiler came. We also have a fully restored bathroom here for this bedroom. We use composting toilets because we're not connected to the water or sewer. And I have to collect rainwater, which goes into the original cistern downstairs. From there, that water is pumped out, treated, and is available for use in the lighthouse. Let's go upstairs. The keepers lived on this floor. The floors here are original. The dark brown floors, they were all redone. We had to refurbish a section in the middle, so I decided to put the compass rose in there. Here is the original bathroom. You could see the white hexagon tile is original to this bathroom. Everything else has been brought in during the renovation. We'll go here to the yellow room. This room was the kitchen. If you look over there, that's a chimney that you can see outside, but it's where the stove would have vented. This room, which is now the master bath, had some lines here, horizontal lines, indicating shelving. So this would have been the pantry. Welcome to the service level. This level was used to service the light. Now it's used for mechanical equipment. Welcome to the Widow's Walk. We're here at the top of the lighthouse. This is the current beacon. Point out a couple of my solar panels, trying to generate some solar energy, as well as a wind turbine. This is the National Weather Service weather station. If you look all the way up to the top, you'll see the little whirligigs going. Otherwise, enjoy the view of Menor Headlands Beach and Headlands State Park. Part of buying a lighthouse from the federal government means that it comes with certain stipulations. My particular lighthouse sits on a piece of property that is owned by the Army Corps of Engineers. If I make it to 25 years, then we'll probably renew the lease again, and there'll be an additional fee. This lighthouse is an active aid to navigation, which means that the beacon still comes on every night, comes on at dusk, goes off at dawn, and it is continually maintained by the Coast Guard. One thing that was very important to me when I bought this lighthouse is that I understood that this was part of this community of Fairport Harbor. So in 2012, I had my first open house. We invited people from the community to come in and take a look. Ever since then, we've had an open house around the lighthouse's birthday, which is June 9th. So every day I get asked whether I rent out the lighthouse or not. I have not rented it. I may in the future, but there's a lot of logistics that need to be organized, maybe someday. So another question people ask me is if I would do it again or I would buy another one. Probably not. This was a great challenge, great opportunity, and I loved every minute of it, but I would probably move on to something else. Thank you. Well, you're not the only lighthouse lovers. This is some of the media coverage that I've gotten over the years. I've been on the Today Show and Wall Street Journal, New York Times, BBC. So people out there love lighthouses. So if you're interested, I do write a blog. It's on my website. You can find that. And I'll go ahead and ask some questions. Yes. It is not heated. It is not heated. So I open it Memorial Day weekend, just last weekend, and I close it generally Columbus Day weekend. If you saw, there's cast iron shutters on the lower level windows. We close those. We close the regular windows. And we also found in the eaves, so a number of things, but one of the things we found were what are called interior storm windows. And you have to have a really old house to know what those are, but they're wooden. They look like giant wooden panes. And we take them and we put them in the windows on the lower level and tack them in. So there's basically three layers against the winter on the first level. The second level, we had to buy all new replacement windows. They're very specialized, and that was one of the things that the Ohio State Preservation Office had to approve in advance because they had to be wood and they couldn't be vinyl because they had to match the originals. Yes, so they were built by a company out of Oregon called Gel Wind, which has a lighthouse initiative. They help lighthouses around the country in their renovations with doors and windows. That's their specialty. They didn't pay for my windows, but they did have the expertise, to know what kind of windows I needed. And everybody asked me if they're hurricane windows. Technically, they're not because we're not in a hurricane zone. But
they are the next level down. So sitting in the middle of Lake Erie in the dead of winter, right? You want the best windows you can. So I've had really good luck with those windows. But no, it does get pretty darn chilly in there. You won't see me in there between like November, and I've been there this in the end of April. It was really cold, and a few other times, but no, it's not heated or air conditioned. Yes.
Does the rain?
So the interesting thing is people ask that. Well, think about it. I'm collecting water all year. So I'm collecting snow and ice and everything all year long. It comes on the roof and it runs down that downspout and into the cistern all year. So even though I'm only there like now, it's been collecting all winter. So I do have enough water. There are local building codes. So in addition to the Coast Guard getting in to tend their light, you probably saw in the video, there's a National Weather Service weather station. If you want to follow that, that's FAI01, Fairport 01. And that will tell you real-time weather, wind speed, wind direction, temperature, all of that. And then in addition to that, the Ohio State Preservation Office. And then the last thing is local building codes. And there is, in Ohio, learned a lot about Ohio. In Ohio, there is what's called a private water system. It's basically what I have. I'm not allowed to take water out of the lake, which is why I have to collect it. But it's like if you had a farm with a pond and you got water out of your pond for your water source. A lot of the Amish and things use that. You have to treat it and chlorinate it and all of that. And there is a requirement for a private water system that you have to have a certain amount of water on site. So my cistern does meet that requirement because it's as big as a room and it holds a lot. It holds about 3,600 gallons, I think, of water. Yes. Oh, right. I'm sorry. So the question was, do I ever run out of water? And you probably heard the answer. The answer is no, because I collect water all year, rainwater, ice, snow. It goes into my cistern all year long. And so then when I'm here in the summer, I have plenty of water because it's still raining, collecting it in the summer. Yes. So the question is, did I ever do any fundraising? Fundraising is a very interesting thing. There's many ways to do it, but the main way that most people think about doing it is like they do it here at a museum. They're a nonprofit organization, right? A 501c3 or some other organization. I decided not to go that route for a few reasons. One is there is very little money out there left for historic preservation. Sadly, there just is not. It's just not. If there is charitable money out there, it's going to feed the homeless or children, or, there's plenty of good causes out there, but historic properties, historic preservation really is down at the bottom of most people's priorities. The other thing, if you know about nonprofit organizations, is generally you have to have some sort of a governing board or executive committees. And I've talked to several. I think I talked to Toledo a while ago. I talked to Ashtabula. I've talked to a number of, when you start that, you have to basically be running the organization at the same time you're raising money. And then you're raising money, and then your organization is making decisions, right? So I think it was Ashtabula that I talked to about 5 years in. About 5 years into the renovation, and they hadn't even picked up a paintbrush yet, right? Because they had to, raise money and then meet and decide and what color and get estimates and get this and get that. When you're an owner, an individual, like when you own your house, you can do a lot more. You want to paint your bedroom, you go paint your bedroom, right? There's not a lot of people. So I didn't want to go through that bureaucracy for the very little money that's out there. Somebody else, yes.
First, it's a Consaul.
Yes, I understand that. Somebody needs to tell me where that is. Close by?
Yeah.
So the question is, or I guess it was a statement, there is a Consaul Street here in Toledo. And yes, those are some distant relatives of mine. Most of the consoles came from an area way upstate New York, up right in Alexandria Bay, Clayton. There's a little area, the Thousand Islands, before you go over into Canada. That's where my great-grandmother and a lot of that name history is from. And there was apparently a group that migrated out here, so. Yes. Actually, I don't think it was my lighthouse. No. So the question is has my lighthouse been encased in ice? Generally, no. My lighthouse puts up with a lot of really severe weather that does come from the west. And I'll tell you, if the storms roll in the middle of the night and I'm sleeping and I haven't shut the windows, I got to get up really fast because all of a sudden I've got water coming in. But no, I think you're talking about Cleveland West Lighthouse, which is the one that you can see from downtown Cleveland. That's generally the one that gets more of the spray, because in order to get that ice, you have to get the wind up to spray and then it has to freeze right on it, right? So no, mine generally has not been that one. No, I haven't. There was a couple of storms, or I think it was like a mini tornado a few years ago that came through and did some damage. Usually the damage in my lighthouse has to do with like picking up the patio chairs and things like that. If you think about it, this lighthouse started to be built in this factory in Buffalo in the 1920s. If you think about the engineering back then, unbelievable engineering. I have 2-foot thick walls, solid brick, steel, plaster, you name it. They engineered that because they knew it was going where it was going. They knew it was going to be a lighthouse. They knew people were going to live in it. I don't know how they engineered it back then. It's just amazing to me. The materials, you could never get them today. You could never afford them today. So it's been there 100 years, and hopefully it'll be there at least another 100 years. I say that I'm really just a steward, and I have had the opportunity to buy this, renovate it, open it, let a lot of people come through and see it. But hopefully it'll be here a long time after I am. Yes, who hasn't? Yes. Okay, so the question is, have I had any trouble with vandalism? And the answer would be a definitive yes. Yes. Generally in the early years, before I had the outside painted, when it was still very sad looking, and it's mostly teenagers. It's teenagers, they go out to the park, they party, they decide it's abandoned government property, they help themselves, they climb the fences, they do whatever they want. Since it's been painted and definitely looked better, and of course, since I've owned it a long time now, people know that it's privately owned, it's gotten a lot better. I also did have a family of raccoons move in. Yeah, so if you've ever had a family of raccoons move into your house, you'll know that they were probably worse than all the teenagers combined. Yes.
Do you know what happened to the Fresnel lens from your lighthouse?
So the question is, what happened to the Fresnel lens from my lighthouse? No, I don't know what happened to it. I suspect it may have gotten removed by the Coast Guard, probably the group in Buffalo, not maliciously, but since I've been there 15 years, I think I'm now on my 3rd beacon. They continue to upgrade these beacons. They keep getting smaller and powerful LED beacons. So I'm sure at some point they took it, they may have broken it into parts or whatever, or it may be in some, warehouse in Buffalo somewhere, but I have never been able to find it and nobody really ever knows. Yes.
So a couple of things. Did they manage to sell them all? And is there a tax advantage to purchasing one of these?
So 2 questions. I think what you mean is, did they sell all the lighthouses? No, they're not done. No, they only do 5 to 15 a year. So if you go on the General Services website and you type in lighthouses, it will come up with the the Lighthouse program, and it'll show you what they're doing now, what they are planning, that sort of thing. So I haven't even looked to see which ones are up this year, but no, there's still, it could take a long time. If you think about there's 800, you know, and they're only doing 5 to maybe 10 a year, it's going to take a long time. So that was the first part. The second part, is there any tax advantages? You mean like, do I get to pay taxes? So those the advantages? No. Well, the only tax advantage that there is I do pay county taxes. I do pay local taxes. The only tax advantage is because it's a historic structure, I was able to get the historic tax credit on my personal taxes. And that, again, is something, whether you have a nonprofit, it's a different structure, but because I financed it all myself, I was able to get that benefit. It's only a 2-year benefit, though. So you take basically 2 years worth of expenses. You try and take the highest 2 years and you get that. Chris, I think you had online questions or Zoom people. So wastewater, the question is, what do I do with wastewater? Wastewater, many of you know, because you're boaters, is called gray water. So I have composting toilets that I use for black water, for the sewage. Gray water is still a work in progress because it does need to be treated before it goes back into the lake. A lot of times I will let it dissipate and do other kind of things. It's usually just me. I'm not generating a lot of wastewater. That's another reason people ask me if I rent it out, or I do, you know, Airbnb or whatever. I think I'd have to go through a lot of more requirements if I was going to do that than just me living there and in the minimum that I use. Chris, is there another one? Yes. Next Saturday, this Saturday, let's see, 2 days, 3 days, 6/6/26, we're having our open house. And it's from 12 to 4, and everyone is welcome. Just to give you an idea, however, we have done this, well, other than the pandemic years, I think about 12 years now. Last year was the 100th birthday, so we had a really big party. But we have about 700 people come through. 700 people. And the reason is, as you can imagine, is people have looked at that lighthouse their entire lives, right? Like they have just stared at it, right? Toledo's a little different. You can't see it from land, right? But the ones you can, like Lorraine, you can see that one from land, right? You just look at it. Just think if Lorraine wasn't open. People would be dying to see what it's like in there, right? People live there forever. So I started that the first year, and the funny story, a lot of funny stories, but the funny story was I went around town, I like hung up all these posters, you know, come to the open house, come see me. I got maybe 40, 50 people, mostly from the park that were kind of like, come on in, you know, come on in. And now I get 700 people. Fortunately, I have a cadre of about 30 volunteers. We stage them throughout the lighthouse because obviously safety is number one. We've got a lot of narrow stairs, a lot of old things, and but yeah, people love to see it and they're happy, and even if they have to wait in line, and they're happy to be able to see what it's finally like. Yes.
What about a foghorn?
Oh, good question. Foghorn. So the question is there a foghorn? Indeed, there is a foghorn. There is a foghorn. And there's an original foghorn. I don't know if you saw it in any of the pictures, but it is now an end table in the living room because it was so heavy that we moved it barely from one side of the room to the other one. But there is a current foghorn. It's up on the Widow's Walk, and it doesn't automatically go off when it's foggy, which is really interesting to me because I always thought, oh, it's going to get foggy and there it goes. No, it's generally set off with a marine channel. It has a marine channel. You can set it off. It's basically designed so that if mariners are in distress, they could set it off. Like if they were coming in the fog, they could set it off and then they could follow it. It's sort of how it's designed, but it is there and it does still function, and I have heard it. Not often. Not often. Unfortunately, just like the light, the foghorns are designed to go out and not down. So when I'm down in the lighthouse, it's not like crazy, it's out. So yes.
Coast Guard comes.
So, well, the answer would be yes. So the question is, does the Coast Guard just show up and come in to fix the lighthouse? So as part of my lease, the number one obligation is that I allow the Coast Guard to tend to the light because that is their number one priority. As such, they do have a key. Both the local Coast Guard station and the Buffalo station have a key. However, they don't just show up. They call me. They are supposed to call me and let me know. They generally come about once a year, just to check everything, tune it up or whatever. Again, these are all fully automated. As long as nothing goes wrong, they don't need to come. Now, in the 15 years I've owned it, the light has gone out twice. And it's usually in the dead of January. Figure that out. And as soon as it goes out, the town of people in Fairport who can see it, they're online. Oh, did you know your light's out? Your light's out. Did you know your light's out? Okay, thanks. I'll get on that. So yeah, and then same with the National Weather Service. They've got a lot of solar panels, equipment, and all of that. So they generally come about once a year. I need to contact them because one of their little whirligigs broke, and they probably want to fix it. But yeah, they're very courteous. If you know much about the Coast Guard too, I usually never see the same people twice, just because they move around so much. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Yes.
Of the fact that you do not have air conditioning or have you keep it a little climate controlled while you're there. And I want to say thank you for letting people come once a year at least see that, because people really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So the question is, does it get hot? Well, it depends on the temperature, but you know, I am sitting kind of on the middle of the lake, so we get a pretty nice breeze. I have all my windows I can open now, so I have all the windows open, and I do have some solar power and a generator that I have a couple small fans that I use, but you know, it's not terrible. I mean, there's been a couple years been much hotter. I do, if it is really hot, there is a corner of the living room I sit in because it is cool and those walls are really thick and there's no sun beaming in on it. So I kind of sit in my little shade corner inside. But it's very, very nice. And you regulate the temperature a lot just on how much the windows are open, right? Yeah, and I also, thank you for reminding me, I also do give private tours. So if you get the contact information, you can contact me and set up a private tour if you want to come out with a small group or family or whatever. I do that as well. And then you get a whole personal tour like I did kind of in the video of this, you know, this is where the keepers live. This is where this room was for, all of that kind of thing. So maybe one more question. Chris, do you have another one? Go ahead.
Logistics of bringing in your groceries.
Oh yeah, logistics. Yeah. What did I say in the video? Access? Yeah. So the question is logistics of getting groceries, gas for the generator, you name it. So I am a backpack person. I always carry a backpack. I carry it in, I carry it out. So we started at the very beginning. You carry in, you carry out, right? So I take food, I take water, gas for the generator, dog food, whatever it is I have to take in. And then we take trash out. And I have a little trash story I used to say. So in the early days, I was telling all about the paint and all the things that we had. We had a lot of trash. We had a lot of paint cans. We had all those boxes you saw for the refrigerators. So you know, those things are huge. Anyways, we packed it all up. And people would be at the beach and they'd come by. Oh, what are you doing up there? What are you doing up there? I'm like, you want to see inside? They'd be like, yeah, I want to see inside. I'll trade you. I'll let you come inside if you carry a bag of trash back. And they did because they had to go to the dumpster in the parking lot. They didn't have to take it home or anything. But yeah, to make sure I'll do that. Okay, then come on in. So, you know, I barked a lot. Yes, sir. So a boat is the question. No. And that is the biggest issue is that a lot of people say, oh, don't you have a boat? Can't you just get out the boat? It's not the boat. It's the dock. It's the dock. You can have as many boats as you want, but if you can't dock them, get off them, you know. So the answer is no. There probably was a dock at some point on the east because they used to bring coal in. They used to bring all kinds of things in, right? Coal for the coal boiler, all that. I have put a dock in twice. I did a custom made dock. It was a little, I call it my elbow dock. It was a little dock where I created it like this, and then it would go down, stick out about 4 feet so I could pull up a boat, pull it back up. The lake took it out twice. Once we had a scuba diver go down and pull it up from the bottom, put it back on, reinforced it all over again. There it goes. Second time I didn't go back and get it. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then somebody, I think it was Ashtabula, had like $150,000 dock that they lost early on. Yeah, because they have to make, again, because it's publicly accessible, they had to make like a handicap ramp dock, and it was a lot of money. And so one more question. Yes, one more question.
When you're done with the list, can I have a 30-second?
Oh, a sidebar? Sure. That would be great. Speaking of which, there were 3 head keepers during that time. There were 3 head keepers. The last keeper of the old lighthouse was the first keeper of mine, Fairport Harbor. Babcock was his last name. There was a second head keeper named LaRose, just like the Secretary of State, I think here. And then there was a third head keeper, and that's escaping me now at this point. But each of the 3 bedrooms are named for one of those head keepers.